Hi friends, today's video is a book haul. Let's talk about the books that have come into my collection in the month of August. August. So to begin, let's talk about my pre-orders. I have 4 of them. First up, I have The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. So I've really enjoyed what I've read from Grady Hendrix. Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires was one of my favorite books last year, and I knew that I wanted to read this. I mean, this is kind of what the title suggests. It's a fast-paced horror novel about a support group for final girls where, you know, they were the last girls left living after a slasher type thing happened. I know my friend Mara from Books Like Woe really enjoyed this, said it wasn't necessarily believable but fun, which I can definitely get behind, so I am looking forward to reading this and pre-ordered that. I also pre-ordered a book that I read as an e-arc from NetGalley, and I wanted a copy on my shelves. This is If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. I freaking loved this. If you, like me, were disappointed by One to Watch, want something that'll give you the vibes of that like Bachelor type TV show with a plus size heroine except with good fat rep, might I recommend If the Shoe Fits. It's also kind of a loose modern retelling of Cinderella. I really loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's not particularly steamy. It's closed door bedroom scenes, but I just had a really good time with this and I wanted to have a copy. I love that Disney is dipping their toes into adult romance, and I actually think, especially if the premise of this sounds interesting to you and you're interested in trying out romance, this could be a good entry point for new romance readers. So I loved it. I bought a copy. I also pre-ordered a book that's a little bit of a gamble because I've never read anything from this author before, but I just have a feeling I'm going to love this, and so I decided to get it. This is The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig. Like I said, I've not read from Chuck Wendig in the past, but like this cover, I love this cover. The premise of this sounded like something that would be so up my alley, and so I decided to get a copy. So it's literary horror, which I tend to really enjoy, about a family returning to their hometown and the dark past that haunts them still. So it's set in rural Pennsylvania, it's got a creepy kid, and I just have a feeling I'm gonna be into this. So I pre-ordered a copy. And then my final pre-order is this hardcover special edition of Sword and Citadel by Gene Wolfe. This is the second half of the Book of the New Suns. So it has the Sword of the Lictor and the Citadel of the Autarch. This is definitely not for everybody. It is a classic of sci fantasy, and we did the first half of it as a book club pick for Blades and Bodice Rippers book club. We were quite split on it. Leanna and I were into it and wanted to keep reading. Mara and Amanda kind of hated it, which is cool, but I really enjoyed the first half. Me and Leanna both have this, and so we are planning on doing a buddy read of this second half probably in October, so looking forward to that. And speaking of the Blades and Bodice Rippers book club, I have 3 books that I purchased because they are book club picks. The one we're going to be reading in October is The Last Final Girl by Stephen Graham Jones. I've read one thing so far by Stephen Graham Jones, really enjoyed it and want to read more, so I'm excited that this is our pick for October. Spooky season, it seemed appropriate to read a horror novel. And this was Amanda's pick, so the live show will be on her channel. Then in November, it's Mara's pick again, and she went with The Sword of Summer, the Magnus Chase series by Rick Riordan. This should be fun. I have not read in this series before, and I think she partly picked it because Leanna particularly likes Norse mythology, so we will be reading this, middle grade. And then the last one that we've announced that I didn't already own a copy of is the pick for February. This is The Highwayman by Kerrigan Byrne. It is a historical romance that I've heard good things about, and I'm excited to read it. So there you go, 3 more Blades and Bodice Rippers book club picks that I've picked up. Then Wendy, who is one of my subscribers, very, very kindly bought me some things off of my wish list, which was so kind and generous of her. None of you should ever feel obligated to do that. I have it there partly because I have BookTube friends where we buy each other things for holidays and birthdays and stuff, but she very generously bought me 3 books that I'm super excited to have. First up is The Bonechar Daughter by Andrea Stewart. This is a book that I read in ARC form and I was really into it. I think it's a very strong debut fantasy and I wanted to have a copy. I want to read the second book in the series, which I think either just came out or is about to come out. This was so interesting and kind of had a fresh spin on fantasy. It was just doing some really intriguing things. I have a more detailed review on Goodreads if you want to check it out, but thank you so much. I'm really excited to have a copy of this. She also got me a copy of Ashes of the Sun by Jango Wexler, which I'm excited about. I actually put this on my wish list because after I read a novella by Jango Wexler, a couple of you guys were saying, oh, you should definitely read more from him, and had suggested Ashes of the Sun as a good place to start, and it looked intriguing, so I'm excited. So thank you to Wendy for buying me a copy. I'm looking forward to this one. He writes kind of feminist fantasy, which is not something you always get from male authors. Like I said, I really enjoyed Hard Reboot, which was a novella from him, so I'm looking forward to this. It says, not even the tides of blood will keep them from splitting the world in two. Surrounded by the relics of a dead empire, two siblings, one who wields magic for the empire and the other who has vowed to bring it all down, will battle for the fate of their world in the first book of this epic new fantasy trilogy. So, sounds amazing. I'm excited for it. And then lastly is a book that I had listened to on audio and really wanted to have a physical copy of as a resource guide. This is something that I think I will go back to in the future. This is NPR's podcast Startup Guide by Glenn Weldon. If you don't know, I also have a podcast, Chapter 3 podcast, which is always linked down below. And it's been an interesting experience. I've been doing it for almost a year now and have learned a lot of things and want to continue growing and improving. And this was just really useful and had a lot of great practical advice in it. So I think as a resource book, this is going to be a great thing to have on hand. Thank you so much, Wendy. This was so nice of you, and I love them. I'm so happy to have these. Speaking of things that were sent to me, let's talk about the things that arrived in the mail from publishers and authors. First is one that I'm very excited to have from Penguin Teen. It's a finished copy of Devil in the Device by Laura Beth Johnson. This is the second book in a duology that started with Goddess and the Machine, which was a favorite book that I read last year. YA sci-fi that's super twisty, and I am excited to read book 2, so thank you so much to Penguin Teen for sending me a copy. Then I have 2 books from Harlequin this month. They sent me a couple of books for promotion on Instagram. I have For the Love of April French by Penny Ames. This one sounded really interesting to me because the heroine is a trans woman, and it's an Own Voices romance novel. So I'm excited to talk about this, excited to check it out. And then the other book that they sent me is A Delicious Dilemma by Sarah Taino. This book follows a heroine who is a chef who goes out and hooks up with a guy who turns out to be part of a rival business that could shut down her company. So, looks like fun. Thank you to Harlequin. Then the folks over at Tor sent me what might be my first 2022 arc. I think this is my first one, physically, and that is The Starless Crown by James Rollins. So I think he's known as being more of a thriller writer, but this is a fantasy. Yes, he is. He's a thriller writer, but this is a fantasy, an epic fantasy, and it sounded really interesting, so I was like, yeah, sure, send it to me. It comes out in January. A daughter guided and cursed by prophecy, a thief freed by stealing a goddess, a soldier carving a trail back home, a prince who will never be king. Who will claim the Starless Crown? I am excited about this. It looks really interesting, and I'm curious to see how it goes. I think a thriller writer writing fantasy could go one of 2 ways, right? But it could be great. So thank you so much to Tor. All right, I have to pause because I have a video premiering, and then I will be back shortly. And my camera's about to overheat anyway, so it's fine. We'll take a break, and I'll be back in just a few minutes. Hello. Okay, that was like an hour, not a few minutes, but it's fine. I don't know if you can tell. Okay, so the next book that was sent to me this month is a novella from an indie author. This is The Red Umber Forest by Kimberly Grimes. It's a novella companion to Isolde Us, which I had read a couple of months back and enjoyed. This is, like I said, a novella, and she asked if I would be interested, and I was like, yeah, sure, send it along. This is kind of a YA sci-fi, fantasy, romance blend, I guess you could say. I don't really know what exactly this novella is about, but I'm looking forward to reading it, so I'll be reading that soon. Thank you so much to Kimberly. Then I used to work freelance with a couple of sisters who have a book-related business, and one of the last things that I did for them was helped with reading entries to a short story contest, the winners of which ended up getting put into this collection. There's now a physical copy for the first time, and they kindly sent me an ARC copy, which is cool. This is Beyond the Beast, Tales of Monsters and Magic, edited by Gabrielle Luciano and Amara Luciano. And what's pretty cool about it is illustrated. Gabby's a really talented artist. She is actually the person who designed my channel logo and channel header and just did amazing work. So yeah, this is cool. Beautiful, and I wanted to share. And congratulations to all of the authors who were included. And then the final book that arrived in the mail this month is from Entangled Publishing. They kindly sent me this bind up of 2 older titles from Vanessa Riley that were originally indie published. This is the Brides of London collection, which includes The Bittersweet Bride and The Bashful Bride. I really like Vanessa Riley. I think she's wonderful. I actually have a copy of The Bittersweet Bride. I haven't read it yet, but it's on my TBR and I like what I've read from her. So this was really nice. Thank you to Entangled. Moving on, I have a few other books that I bought in the last month and then my Book of the Month box. A few books have come from indie bookstores this month. One I went to is a nonprofit bookstore that sells used books, and the proceeds go to benefit a good cause. And so I stopped by, and for the first time, they are now carrying romance, which is exciting. They didn't used to. So I found a couple of books and bought them. I like supporting their cause. I have Uncertain Magic by Laura Kinsale. Laura Kinsale is a little bit of an older romance author, but I've heard some really good things about her and I've wanted to try her. I don't actually know anything about this book in particular, but it was not very much. It was like a little used mass market paperback, so I picked that up. Then I also found a hardcover copy of Because of Miss Bridgerton by Julia Quinn. I've been reading the Bridgerton series and enjoying it, and I think this is like the latest of the bunch. So I was like, hey, cool, why not? Let's get it. Support a good cause, get some romance. I love it. Then we ordered takeout and I was walking to pick it up and passed by a little indie bookstore that I had never been to before. So of course I popped in to check it out, as one does, and found something very exciting and unexpected. They had a first edition copy of Fledgling by Octavia Butler, which I love. This was one of my favorite books the year that I read it. It's a very controversial book, but I was a huge fan, and I hadn't seen what the original hardcovers looked like. It's so cool, and I was like, yes, yes please, let me add this to my collection. Yeah, this was exciting. It was like a little used bookstore, and they had a first edition copy of Fledgling, so I picked that up. All right, I have a few more books, a couple that I mentioned in my Patrons Pick My TBR reading vlog. One of my patrons had me read the first book in the Dresden Files, and I liked it and picked up Full Moon, which is book 2. I don't think I showed that on camera, but I have book 2. I picked that up. And then the other thing is I went with my kids to Barnes & Noble because they had completed like a summer challenge with their workbooks, and we said, okay, if you guys like do X, Y, and Z, we'll like take you and you can pick out like a toy and stuff. So I took them for that, but also while I was there, Barnes & Noble was doing their like book haul deal where a bunch of books were half off, and there's a book that caught my eye. So I picked up A History of What Comes Next by Sylvain Neuvel. So here's the thing about this. I know it's gotten really mixed reviews. I know some people thought it was really boring or weren't big fans. However, based on the reviews I've seen, or at least some of the reviews I've seen, I think I might really like this book. It's one of those books that I feel like is very hit and miss for people, but I have a feeling it might be for me. It's kind of sci-fi, but alternate history set in the age of rocketry and following a couple of female characters. Also, it's really pretty. Like, I think it's really cool looking. So, at half price, I picked that up. And then lastly, I can't even remember now. Did I get one of these in an indie bookstore as well? I think I might have. And then the other one was just super on sale and it was on my wish list. I decided to pick up a copy of Catherine House by Elizabeth Thomas. The paperback just came out, and this is another book that is very polarizing. People seem to hate it or love it, and I'm intrigued. People that I trust have fallen on both sides of this. I know some people who hated this book and some people who loved this book, and I'm just so intrigued by it. I want to have my own opinion on it, so I bought a copy. And then the last thing is something that was put on my radar from Mara at Books Like Whoa. I actually think she's friends with the author, and when I heard her mention this at some point, I was like, that sounds really interesting. Let me add that to my wish list, and then it was very on sale. So I got hashtag Church2, How Purity Culture Upholds Abuse and How to Find Healing by Emily Joy Allison. It's a nonfiction examination of purity culture in like the evangelical church, which is something I grew up with. I am an ex-evangelical, and this seems like something that would be very, very relevant to me, so I was interested, so I picked that up. And that is it. Oh! except for my Book of the Month box. My Book of the Month Club box. I actually skipped last month, which is something I like that you can do if you're not particularly interested in any of the books they have available. You can just skip and wait till the next month. I appreciate that. I really like Book of the Month Club. It's $15 a month including shipping for a new release or sometimes pre-release hardcover. There's always 5 different options you can choose from in different genres. Like I said, you can skip if you're not interested in any of them, which is what I did previously, and you can do up to 2 add-ons a month for $10 each. I really like it a lot. This is not sponsored, but I do have a link down below where if you're interested in signing up and you use my link, I get a free book. So if you want to do that, feel free to make use of it. Let me show you what I got. I was very excited about the picks for this month. I think it was great. And I finished the reading challenge, which is kind of fun. So they have a thing on the app where if you read and review certain numbers and types of books that you get like a little free gift in one of your boxes. So I finished the reading challenge and I got these cute socks. I don't know that I'll wear them because I don't really like socks that are super tight on my ankles and stuff, but they're very cute and somebody will want to have them. So thank you to Book of the Month for those. My pick for August had to be The Inheritance of Orchidea Divina by Zoraida Cordova. Like, this is stunning. I'm so excited for it. This is Zoraida Cordova's adult fantasy debut, and I've been hearing such good things about it. It's Latinx, has a lot to do with family and magic, and that's all I know and all I need to know. I'm going to read it, and I'm probably gonna love it. And then lastly, the one add-on I got this month was Survive the Night by Riley Sager, rounding out my Riley Sager collection. I have to admit, since getting this, I have heard a lot of less than stellar reviews of this book. It seems like a lot of people didn't love it very much, which is unfortunate, but I have it. I'm gonna read it and review it, and hopefully I enjoy it. Like, now I'm nervous, we'll see. That is it. Those are all the books that have made their way into my collection this month. Talk to me in the comments down below and let me know any of your thoughts or feelings on anything I talked about in this video. And question of the day. For question of the day, tell me about your favorite local bookstore. If you have a local indie bookstore that you really love. I know some people don't live close to an indie and Barnes & Noble is kind of all they have available. That's totally fine if you want to mention that. But if you want to shout out your favorite local bookstore in the comments down below, do it. Let's talk about some favorites. I guess I should let you know the nonprofit place where I got the romance is Housing Works Books. I think you can find them online as well, but they're wonderful. Talk to me in the comments down below. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time.